The story starts with a hunter who was running away from a monster. He lured a group of ant monsters to his comrades and they planned to defeat them. So they started casting fire spells, but their attack did no damage. The hunters were killed by the monsters and only one low-rank hunter was left. The leader of the group was dying, but at the last moment, a high-rank hunter Byunggu appeared and saved him. He cast a healing spell and monsters tried to sneak attack him. Following this, Byunggu's comrades appeared and they began to take down the giant ants. The low-rank hunters were happy that a famous S-rank hunter guild showed up to save them. Afterwards, another monster appeared and they suspected that it was the leader of the swarm. Yunho told Byunggu to look after the wounded and he planned to fight the monster with Yunseok. They rushed towards the white ant and attacked it with strong skills. They were pushed back, but Yunho managed to finish off the ant with a final blow. Suddenly, more ants of the same kind appeared, and Yunho was about to get serious. He unleashed his true power and attacked the ants with full force with Yunseok. Then we see S-rank hunter Cho, and he planned to eliminate the ants with a powerful fire attack. Unfortunately, the white ants survived and he sent his guild members into battle. Then we learn that over 10 years ago a series of gates were linked to this world. In addition, people with magical powers called hunters awakened. However, once of these powers have awakened, no amount of individual effort can ever result in greater strength. Then we see Hunter Parker, who told his friend that he will take part in the upcoming raid because he needs money. Meanwhile, Jinwoo also arrived, and Parker asked if he was a big deal, because all hunters knew him. Mr. Kim told Parker that Jinwoo can't even get through an E-rank raid without getting hurt. Then we see Juhee, who was worried about Jinwoo, and he said that he got injured in an E-rank dungeon. Juhee also learned that there was no healer and she was angry. Jinwoo said that it is his fault because he is weak. Suddenly Cheol introduced himself, and he said that he is the leader of this raid. Then they entered the gate, and Mr. Kim wished Jinwoo good luck. Jinwoo tried to stay calm, and he also entered the gate. We then see Chairman Go, and he was asked how the administration was going. He looked at an essence stone, aware that every hunter was risking his life for it. Meanwhile, Jinwoo was in the dungeon, and he was attacked by a goblin. Jinwoo tried to defeat the goblin, but his sword broke. He was also seriously injured, and Parker showed up to defeat the goblin. Juhee activated her healing magic, and Jinwoo envied his comrades who easily defeated the magical beasts. We then learn that the essence stones are very important to this world, because they can be used to create powerful weapons. They also needed it because it served as a source of energy for this world. A few moments later, the dungeon boss was defeated, and Juhee tried to force Jinwoo to give up being a hunter. He said sorry, but she didn't want an apology because she was worried about him. Jinwoo knew himself that he was not suitable as a hunter, and that he almost died for an E-rank crystal. Suddenly a hunter discovered a cave, and they suspected it was a double dungeon. Leader Cheol told them that they had to inform the Hunter Association about this before exploring. But Mr. Kim and Parker said that the Hunter Association will collect all the valuable essence stones. As a result, they voted, and it was up to Jinwoo whether they will enter the second dungeon. Jinwoo knew it would be dangerous, but he needed money to pay for his mother's treatments and send his sister to college. Then we see the Hunter Association, and a guy was measuring his awakened powers. Many scouts were waiting in the building, who were commissioned by famous hunter guilds to recruit the talented hunters. In the meantime, a woman's Gucci bag was stolen by thieves. The criminals tried to run away, but S-rank hunter, Cha Haein stopped them. She grabbed the bag and the thieves lost control of their scooter. However, she handed the bag back to its owner, who thanked her. Suddenly the famous hunter was surrounded by fans and she jumped away. Then we see Jinwoo and he apologized to Juhee. She was angry because she was against fighting the second dungeon boss. The reason for this was that she was worried about Jinwoo because she didn't want him to die. But she knew that Jinwoo has his reasons for it, and she said that he has to invite her to dinner as an apology. Following this, they arrived at the boss chamber and the hunters prepared for battle. In the meantime, the newly awakened were told by Chairman Go Gun-hee that they shouldn't risk their lives carelessly. After this, Jinwoo's raid group entered the boss chamber, and they were surprised because of the giant statues. They thought they were in the wrong movie because the statues reminded them of Transformers 5. Jinwoo wondered if the statues were descended from the Decepticons. Meanwhile, Leader Cheol discovered a magic circle engraved on the ground. They also found an ancient script containing a riddle. Juhee was terrified and said that the statue was moving. Suddenly they heard a loud noise and they realized that the door had closed. One of the hunters tried to leave the room, but the statues started to move and he was killed by them. The hunters were shocked that the statues were overpowered. Jinwoo had never heard of such strong magical beasts, and he knew that no Autobots would appear to save them. Then he noticed that a statue was looking at him, and he froze in fear. Jinwoo remembered his numerous raids, and he was always fighting for his life because he was extremely weak. For these reasons, his Spider-Man senses awakened, and he never let his guard down. Following this, he warned his comrades because he saw the enemy attack coming. Unfortunately, it was too late for some hunters, and they were wiped out by the laser eyes. Jinwoo couldn't believe that they were trapped, and he understood that there was no way out. Following this, Leader Chiyul tried to calm him down, because without Jinwoo they would have died. Suddenly, he noticed that Chiyul was missing an arm, and he tried to stop the bleeding. Chiyul told him that he participated in a couple of B-rank raids, and he said that this one is most likely an S-rank. Then we see Jinwoo's sister, and Gina said that her brother is a hunter. She said that she is always worried about him, and wondered why her friend questioned her about Jinwoo. Meanwhile, a hunter was trying to escape from the boss chamber, and he activated a body enhancement spell. His attempt failed, and he was wiped out in just a second. Jinwoo was shocked at the power of the statues, but he didn't give up. At that moment he remembered the words that was written in ancient script. He believed that this room has its own rules, and Chiyul was surprised that Jinwoo hasn't given up on life. Then he tried to follow the rules, and he said that they should kneel to the statue. The reason for this was that Jinwoo noticed that the statue did not attack him when his body was lowered. As a result, they managed to pass the first task, and the statue began to smile evilly. Parker noticed that they were no longer under attack, and they began to stand up. Everyone thought it was over, but Jinwoo had a bad feeling. Suddenly the statue stood up, and Jinwoo didn't know what to do next. He remembered that the second commandment was telling them to praise God. After that, a hunter tried to worship the statue, and Jinwoo sensed that something was wrong. Suddenly their comrade was crushed by the giant statue, and they tried to escape. Everyone was running for their lives like they were in Attack on Titan. They were desperate, and didn't know how to survive the attack. Parker thought he was safe, but he was wrong, and was cut in half. Meanwhile, Jinwoo tried to figure out what the second commandment requires. He didn't want to let Juhi die and looked around. Then he noticed that the statues holding a musical instrument did not attack. Jinwoo was right, and the statues with musical instruments were protecting them. Afterwards, he learned that two people were not allowed to stand together. As a result, he decided to risk his life to save Juhi. Jinwoo tried to run to the nearest statue with an instrument, but he was almost crushed. Following this, Jinwoo landed under a knight with a shield, and he was attacked again. Jinwoo managed to survive, but he was seriously injured. He didn't give up and tried to use his last strength to reach a statue with the musical instrument. At the last second, he managed to reach the statue, and he was glad that he is alive. The statue that crushed him went back to his seat. Juhi ran to Jinwoo and she noticed that he had lost a leg. Following this, she tried to heal him, but she ran out of mana and started to cough blood. Then Mr. Kim blamed Chiyul for this, even though he was against the idea of entering the second dungeon. Suddenly, the ground began to shake and an altar appeared. Jinwoo guessed that the third commandment meant sacrificing a person to God. Then Mr. Kim planned to sacrifice their leader, and he said that Chiyul was responsible for this mess. Jinwoo was disappointed with Mr. Kim because together they decided to enter the second dungeon. Suddenly a flame lit up, and Jinwoo asked to take him over to the altar. When he entered the magic circle, he already suspected what the third commandment meant. He knew that if they failed, there would be a dungeon break after 7 days. This would also put the world in danger, and he planned to protect his family at all costs. We then see Gina, who was visiting her mother in the hospital. Gina told her mother, who was in a coma, that she had passed the college entrance exam. Jinwoo then asked his comrades to enter the magic circle around the altar. At that moment, more flames appeared, and the door opened. The statues were moving, and Jinwoo said that they need to open their eyes to stop them from moving. One of the hunters panicked and she ran out of the magic circle. As a result, one of the red flames went out, and Jinwoo knew that the blue flames will go out too. He suspected that the door was a trap and they were just being tested. Suddenly another hunter ran out, and Jinwoo asked them to come back. He knew that without his comrades, they would not be able to stop the statues. Then Mr. Kim said that he is grateful that they survived because of him. But he decided to abandon Jinwoo, and he immediately ran out because he didn't want to die. Leader Chiyul planned to sacrifice himself so that Juhi and Jinwoo could survive. Suddenly Juhi froze in fear, and she said that she can't move anymore. At that moment Jinwoo replied that he would sacrifice himself and asked Chiyul to take Juhi with him. Juhi wanted to die with Jinwoo, but she was knocked out by Chiyul. Jinwoo stayed behind, and he wasn't about to die without a fight. So he grabbed a sword and tried to fend off the attacks of the statues. He had no chance and was overwhelmed. As a result, his arm was cut off and he wished he could become stronger. Jinwoo hated this world and he wondered why it's always the selfish ones who get all the benefits. At the last moment of his life, he regretted not being able to say goodbye to his family. Jinwoo didn't want to die, but the last flame went out. Before he died, a notification window opened and he accepted a secret quest. Suddenly, Jinwoo woke up in a hospital. He noticed that his arm was intact and immediately looked at his legs. At that moment, he thought it was just a nightmare. After this, Jinchul, the manager of the Hunters Association surveillance team, showed up. They got many questions for him that needed to be answered. Jinwoo learned that he was unconscious for 3 days. In addition, he was told that Chiyul retired as a hunter. But Juhi was traumatized and she's undergoing psychiatric care. Following this, Jinchul told him that when the White Tiger Guild arrived at the scene, only Jinwoo was found and the entrance to the second dungeon no longer existed. Because of this, they had a lot of questions for Jinwoo. Suddenly, Jinwoo was asked if he had experienced a second awakening. We then learn that a second awakening can cause a hunter to be given the power to become an A-rank hunter or higher. Then his power level was measured to find out whether he had experienced a second awakening, but his power level was still at 10. As a result, Jinchul apologized and said that he may have been mistaken. After the guys left his room, Jinwoo wondered if they saw the notification window. Jinwoo planned to take a closer look, but his sister entered the room. She scolded him because she was worried about her big brother. Then he learned that no one could see the notification window that popped up. He wondered what the message box was trying to tell him. After his sister left the room, he learned about quests that give him rewards. He learned that failing the daily quest would result in a penalty. He ignored his daily quest and had no idea what would happen as a result. Meanwhile, Jinchul reported to Chairman Go that Jinwoo had not experienced a second awakening. Chairman Go replied that he should come back and he should write him a report. Then we see Cho, and he told Cha Hae-in to participate on the next B-rank raid as an instructor. She was unsure if she was a good mentor, but Guildmaster Cho believed in her. During the night, another gate appeared, and the citizens wondered where the hunters were. Meanwhile, the time for the daily quest is up, and Jinwoo got a penalty. He was sent to another dimension, and a giant monster appeared. He learned that he had to survive in the desert for 4 hours, and the nurses were wondering where Jinwoo was. Then we see Jinwoo, and he was running away from a huge monster that was trying to eat him. Jinwoo had been running in the desert for 2 hours, and he regretted not doing his daily quest. 2 hours later, time was almost up, and Jinwoo thought that he will die. He was exhausted, and the monster almost managed to eat him. Just before he was eaten, time was up, and Jinwoo was sent back to the hospital. The nurses were surprised to see Jinwoo in his room, and asked if he was okay. In the following morning, Jinwoo got ready to complete his daily quest. Then we see Juhi, and she was asked for a D-rank gate. They understood if she refused, and she also learned that Jinwoo had woken up. Later she planned to go visit Jinwoo. At the hospital, she learned that Jinwoo still hadn't given up on being a hunter. Juhi didn't want to disturb him during his workout and decided to go home. Then we see Jinwoo, and he received many rewards by completing the daily quests. He learned that he gets 3 different rewards every day after completing the quests. That would be status points and instant recovery. In the evening, he planned to claim his 3rd reward, and he opened a loot box. He got a key, and he learned that it was a key for teleporting to an instant dungeon. At that moment, Jinwoo wondered if an instant dungeon was as dangerous as the last one. A few days passed and citizens were warned about the gate locations. They learned that citizens will soon be able to re-enter the cordoned-off areas. After this, Jinwoo visited his mother in the hospital. He remembered when the doctor diagnosed his mother as suffering from eternal sleep disease. Since then, his life changed, and he had to work hard for his money. Suddenly he felt that he had awakened, and he qualified as an E-rank hunter. He planned to earn money as a hunter to pay his mother's medical bills. Unfortunately, he was useless, but Jinwoo didn't plan to waste his second chance. He decided to use the key from the system, and went to the dungeon location. After that, he used the key to open the mysterious dungeon. Suddenly a bright light appeared and an instant dungeon was created at the metro station. At that moment, a gate appeared that only Jinwoo could enter. He went in and was shocked that the exits had been sealed off. Suddenly a window opened, and he learned the rules to get out of the dungeon. Jinwoo learned that he got 2 options to get out of the dungeon, and he decided to went down. A few moments later, goblins appeared. He remembered the last time he was almost killed by a single goblin. Jinwoo was scared and he tried to dodge the goblins' attacks. So Jinwoo's first fight in an instant dungeon began. Suddenly they caught him off guard and Jinwoo was injured. Jinwoo didn't give up and managed to defeat one of the goblins. That left 2 monsters left, and he got used to their movements. As a result, Jinwoo managed to defeat the goblins. He thought it was over, but a wolf appeared behind him. He was attacked, and his dagger was destroyed. He was shaking, but he knew that the monster was nothing compared to the last dungeon. Then he was attacked by the wolf, but he managed to dodge in time. Jinwoo was desperate, and his enemy planned to give him the final blow. Jinwoo somehow dodged and managed to activate his Spider-Man powers. At that moment, he knew that he was really Peter Parker, and he attacked the wolf. Jinwoo was surprised that he got stronger and attacked again. Unfortunately, his opponent was tougher than expected. Then he remembered that he could get a weapon from his inventory. Jinwoo attacked the wolf with a sword, and he managed to defeat the wolf. He also leveled up and his wounds healed. Afterwards, more wolves appeared, but Jinwoo's sword was stuck in the ground. He tried to pull out the sword as if it were Excalibur and attacked the wolves. But Jinwoo was not Arthur, and the wolves repelled his attack. He went all out and managed to kill the next wolf. Then he realized that the wolves are not scary at all, and the last wolf ran away in fear. Jinwoo was exhausted, and he realized that he is level 2. Then he looked at his stats and understood that he was getting stronger as he leveled up. He planned to level up solo to become a strong hunter. After that, Jinwoo went to the monsters to see if they dropped any items. He understood that this dungeon was different from the ones he knew, and it's more similar like an RPG game. Shortly afterwards, Jinwoo planned to find a teleportation stone to get out of the dungeon. He wasn't sure if he could defeat a dungeon boss, but that was the only option left to him at the moment. After that, countless wolves appeared, who wanted to kill him. Jinwoo charged at them, and he didn't intend to die in this dungeon. Suddenly, he felt that he could change his life. He was scared, but he didn't want to waste his second chance. After that, Jinwoo was attacked by the wolves, but he was no longer afraid. He defeated them with ease and he leveled up quickly. A few hours later, Jinwoo acquired the title of Wolf Assassin, and he was completely exhausted. Also, he realized that his sword won't last much longer. Afterwards, he looked at the items that were dropped in his battle, and he even received a teleportation stone. He got the option to return to the exit, but he feared that the dungeon would vanish. As a result, he decided to move on to level up further. Meanwhile, Juhee received a call and she found out about a dungeon break. She was shocked by this, and she wanted to rush to help because Jinwoo would do the same. Then we see Jinwoo, and he almost reached the end of the dungeon. The monsters became stronger and stronger, and he understood how to assess the strength of the monsters. Then he stood in front of the last level of the dungeon and he got a bad feeling. Jinwoo was nervous, but he decided to keep going to get stronger. Jinwoo arrived at the last level of the dungeon and he looked around. Out of nowhere, he was attacked by a monster. Following this, he noticed that his sword was broken, and he was sure that the monster in front of him is the dungeon boss. Jinwoo faced the enemy, and he tried to block the attack with his broken sword. At that moment, he noticed that the snake's skin was extremely sturdy. He didn't know how to win, and thought he was going to die. However, Jinwoo was hit by a series of attacks, and he tried to survive. Suddenly, a pull fell on him, and he was frustrated that he's not stronger. He didn't give up and remembered that he was known as the weakest hunter of all mankind. Then Jinwoo said that he won't lose. He hated being weak and talked to himself. A short time later, he remembered how he was treated by his comrades, just because he was weak. He hated it and had no intention of giving up. Then he was stomped to the ground again, but he was determined to win. In that moment, he awakened a new power through the desire to become stronger. He began his counterattack and slowly managed to gain the upper hand. Following this, he destroyed the snake's skin. The dungeon boss tried to shake him off, but Jinwoo held on as tightly as he could. As a result, he managed to kill the monster with his bare hands. He was the winner of the battle, and received a notification that his level had been increased. Also, Jinwoo received a new overpowered weapon that the dungeon boss dropped. After the dungeon boss was defeated, the dungeon vanished. Jinwoo's wounds were healed, and he realized that it was very late. Suddenly a soldier appeared, and he learned that Jinwoo is a hunter. Jinwoo found out about a dungeon break. He used his new ability, and could sense in which direction the monsters were. We then see hunters trying to defeat a giant glowing golem. The citizens were evacuated, but the hunters had trouble fighting it because they didn't got a damage dealer. Meanwhile, Jinwoo could use his ability to sense that the hunters had no chance against the golem. Suddenly he noticed that Juhee is on the battlefield. She was still traumatized, and was useless as a healer. Jinwoo couldn't blame her, and he decided to defeat the monster. So he prepared a strong attack and concentrated his power on one point. Jinwoo threw his sword at the monster and the golem's shield shattered. As a result, Jinwoo managed to defeat the monster with his powerful attack. One of the hunters was noticing that something was thrown at the golem. He wondered where the broken sword came from, but Jinwoo was already gone. A few weeks passed, and Jinwoo achieved an amazing body through his daily workouts. Besides, all the nurses got a crush on him. Then Nurse Hyun entered his room, and she stared at his amazing body. Jinwoo was discharged from the hospital today. Suddenly she asked for his digits, and he thought that it was to send him some test results. The next day we see Baek Yoonho, who was live on TV. He was interviewed and revealed his secrets on how he starts the day as a successful hunter. Then we see Gina watching TV, and she planned to set off for school. Meanwhile, Jinwoo woke up and Gina was surprised that he got a six-pack. Also, she noticed that her big brother seemed to be taller. After this, she headed out, and Jinwoo forced her to take an umbrella with her. A short time later, he looked at his daily quests, and he thought, if he keeps leveling up, he will end up like a bodybuilder. Then he got a call, and his landlord remembered him that he didn't pay the rent last month. He was lucky that his landlord is a nice person, and his next plan was to make money like a top G. Then he looked for jobs, and he considered getting reappraised. But he knew that he would definitely stand out, and decided to stay undercover for the time being. At that moment, a well-paying job appeared that he could do as an E-rank hunter. When he arrived, he was greeted by Dong-suk, and one of them recognized Jinwoo as the weakest hunter of all mankind. Dong-suk apologized for the rude behavior and explained that they would be entering a C-rank dungeon. After this, he checked their power level, and Jinwoo was asked to help them with their baggage. Additionally, he learned that they won't have a healer on the team, and Jinwoo was shocked at their squad consisting only of damage dealers and tanks. In the meantime, money boy Yoo Jin-ho, who was here to meet the quota, showed up. He introduced himself as a D-rank hunter, and he told Jinwoo that he will protect him in the dungeon. Jinwoo thought that the newbie is a spoiled and arrogant guy, but he was a nice person. A few moments later they stood in front of a huge gate, and Dong-suk's comrades were surprised by the size. He replied that the association checked twice and they said it's a C-rank. Meanwhile, Jinwoo was nervous because he had never entered a C-rank dungeon before. So they entered the C-rank dungeon, and Kyo-won activated a light spell. Then he explained to Yoo Jin-ho that usually in caves, there are glowstones that give off a faint light. A short time later, they still didn't encounter any monsters. Jinwoo heard a noise, and Dong-suk told his squad that they can't let their guard down. They didn't know which direction the monsters would attack from, and they panicked. Jinwoo warned them and said that they were attacking from above. Then the battle started and Dong-suk planned to draw their attention. He activated a taunt skill, and the ants were heading toward Dong-suk. Yoo Jin-ho wanted to support them in the fight, but Kyo-won ordered him to stay back because he was preparing a counterattack. After this, Luck introduced himself, and Asta learned that he is a battle junkie. Afterwards, Dong-suk thanked Jinwoo, and he asked him how he knew they were coming from above. Meanwhile, Kyo-won noticed that some monsters had already been injured, and Dong-suk suspected that there is a strong monster in this dungeon. Yoo Jin-ho was sure that they would clear the dungeon with ease, and Jinwoo was deep in thought. Then we see the White Tiger Guild members doing their workout, and the whole building started shaking. The reason for this was that their guildmaster destroyed a huge stone with his bare fists. Meanwhile, Jinwoo and his party went deeper and deeper into the dungeon. He was still worried and remembered Chiyul's advice. Later, Dong-suk was surprised that the monsters they had encountered so far were always injured beforehand. Then they reached the entrance to the boss chamber, and he ordered his comrades not to let their guards down. A short time later, they discovered a place with tons of mana crystals. Jin-suk said that even Dong-suk's brother would be jealous of a score like this. Suddenly, Yoo Jin-ho learned that Jinwoo gets nothing from the essence stones, and Dong-suk replied that he will share the profits fairly later. After this, Dong-suk said that they will first mine the mana stones. Dong-suk planned to go out of the dungeon with his squad, and he asked them to wait for them in the boss chamber. Dong-suk said that nothing will happen because the monster is sleeping. Meanwhile, Jinwoo sensed that something was wrong with Dong-suk's squad. He suspected that Dong-suk and his squad were planning to betray them. At that moment, Kyo-won blocked the entrance, and Jinwoo was right. He remembered when Chiyul warned him that some guilds use weaker people as bait for enemies. After that, Jinwoo understood why he constantly had this strange feeling, because he constantly felt the bloodlust coming from Dong-suk's squad. Then the dungeon boss woke up, and there was no option to escape. The dungeon boss was hungry, and Jinwoo knew that they are in big trouble. Jinwoo thought at first that they had no chance. But he realized that the monster is nothing compared to the last dungeon, and he decided to beat him up. In this moment, he took out his dagger and faced the monster in a one-on-one. Meanwhile, Jin-suk asked their leader why they didn't kill them immediately. The reason for this was that Dong-suk wanted to use them as food, so that they could later haul the mana crystals without any disruption. Dong-suk's comrades liked his plan, and he said that he was looking forward to getting the equipment from Yujinho too. After this, Dong-suk smiled evilly because he was sure that the two definitely had no chance of surviving. Then we see Yujinho trying to talk Jinwoo out of fighting the dungeon boss. Jinwoo was aware that he was still weak and that he had never fought such a strong monster before, but he didn't plan on giving up here and started his attack. Jinwoo charged towards his opponent, and Yujinho understood that Jinwoo is not a normal hunter. Following this, we see Chairman Go, and he was exhausted because of the last meeting. Jinchul told him that his schedule is clear for the time being, and he asked him for a bit of instruction. A short moment later, Jinwoo tried to cut off the spider's legs, but they were harder than steel. Suddenly his opponent started a counterattack, and he knew that he couldn't be hit by the spider. Yujinho was surprised by his movement and thought he was a fake ranker. He was scared because fake rankers are known to be lunatics who kill for the fun of it. Yujinho thought he would be murdered, and Jinwoo still couldn't find a way to harm the dungeon boss. Then he thought of a plan and tried to aim for a weak spot. Suddenly he was attacked with acid, and he was shocked by this ability. He noticed that his body was slowing down and decided to test a new skill. As a result, he managed to get to the spider's head, but he missed the weak spot. Despite failing, Jinwoo didn't give up, and he kept trying to hit the spider's mouth. Shortly afterwards, Jinwoo tried to go faster, but his body was reaching his limit. He couldn't move anymore, and he was smashed to the ground by the giant spider. At the last second, he accepted his full recovery reward from the daily quest. He then jumped on the monster and managed to hit an eye. He finally dealt damage and stabbed the monster several times to kill it. As a result, he won the fight, and was happy that he sat on those daily quest rewards. Meanwhile, Yujinho was sure that he was a false ranker because he defeated a C-rank dungeon boss alone. He thought that Jinwoo was going to kill him and acted weird. Afterwards, Dong-suk and his squad showed up, who were surprised that the two were still alive. Later, Chairman Go trained with Jinchul, and he had a lot of fun. He told Jinchul that he was getting a lot better at his defense. Following this, Dong-suk's squad thought that Yujinho had defeated the C-rank boss. Dong-suk made him an offer that if he kills Jinwoo, he will spare him. Yujinho didn't hesitate for a second, and they thought that he was planning to kill Jinwoo. But he decided to side with Jinwoo. As a result, Dong-suk planned to eliminate the two immediately. Suddenly, a new quest appeared, and Jinwoo was distracted. He was hit by Kyuwon's blast spell. Then we see Hee-yin, who met her friends to have a coffee at Starbucks. She asked Jinny how their trip going to an A-rank dungeon with Cha Hae-in was. She replied that everyone was struggling against an A-rank monster, but Cha Hae-in easily defeated it. After that, Jinny said that they can be happy because they are in the big guilds. Meanwhile, Yujinho was crying because he thought Jinwoo is dead. Jinwoo couldn't believe that he might die again. At that moment, he realized something and decided to eliminate Dong-suk and his squad. He wanted to get stronger, and planned to listen to the system. Suddenly, Jinwoo felt a great desire to kill, and he started to change. At that moment, a dark aura enveloped him, and his power level was increasing. Afterwards, Juntae talked down to him, but Jinwoo cut off his head. The first enemy was defeated, and Dong-suk was confused, because an E-rank hunter would not be able to kill a D-rank hunter. Jinwoo was shocked about himself because he had killed a human for the first time, but he started to like it. Suddenly, his enemies tried to kill him, but Jinwoo dodged their attacks with ease. He was unstoppable and killed his opponents one by one. His opponents tried with all their might to stop him, but he was too fast. A few minutes later, we see Dong-suk's squad was wiped out by Jinwoo. In this moment, Dong-suk realized that Jinwoo had defeated the dungeon boss and he increased his power level. He thought he could defeat Jinwoo and underestimated him. Then Jinwoo was attacked, but he smashed him into the ground. He was desperate and begged Jinwoo to spare him. Jinwoo was angry and told him that they tried to kill him 3 times. Suddenly, Dong-suk tried to threaten him, but Jinwoo wasn't afraid and cut off his head. Jinwoo had completed his quest and the dungeon started to collapse. In the evening, Yujinho reported to the Hunter Association that Dong-suk and his squad died in the fight against the dungeon boss. Shortly afterwards, Yujinho thanked Jinwoo because he would have died without him. A few days passed and we see a mysterious hunter who was looking out of the window.